This is Focus with Julie Oberlander.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Julie Oberlander, filling in for Jack Cottle on this month's edition of Focus. Tonight, we are talking about cancer. It's a disease that affects every one of us, either directly or indirectly. And I'd like to welcome our guest tonight, Dr. Daniel Peterite, a radiation oncologist at Rapid City Regional Hospital's Cancer Care Institute, Jenny Liebernight, a wife, mom, and professional engineer in Rapid City, who is also a cancer survivor, and Kristen Heidema with the American Cancer Society here in South Dakota. Thank you all so much for joining me tonight. So, Dr. Peterite, I'd like to start with you. What drew you to oncology as a specialty rather than another field?
Sure. Well, thanks for having us on tonight. I come from a family of medical professions. My mother's a nurse, my sister and my dad's a physician, and it's hard to know in medical school what you want to go into, but I guess what drew me into oncology was there was a definite need in my particular part of oncology, radiation oncology. It's very high tech. There's a lot of innovative treatments, but you really have to know the other disciplines as well. And hopefully, similar to other people that go to medical school, they ultimately want to help people. And it's been a very rewarding profession. I've been out here for about 15 years, and I've been an oncologist for about 20 years.
And are there certain types of cancers that you would work with most in Rapid City, or do you really run the gamut of cancers?
Yeah, really run the gamut, but I guess I subspecialize in gynecologic cancers and do a lot of brachytherapy for common cancers such as prostate, GYN, and breast cancer.
Okay, all right. Jenny, can you tell us a little bit about your cancer diagnosis?
Yes, so I found the lump in my breast myself after I just was training for a race and I wasn't feeling myself, and there was some pain, and so I went in and had it checked out, and my medical professional didn't think that thought it was probably a cyst or something like that because it hurt. But I went and was sent to get a mammogram just to make sure, and that's the same day at Dakota Radiology they did a biopsy, and the radiologist that told me that did the biopsy told me that she suspected that it was cancer. So I kind of knew even before the pathology results came in the next day, that's what we were looking at, and I never really felt like totally freaked out by it or doomed by it or anything like that. I was just like, okay, now what? What do we do now? I just need a plan.
So you went through some treatment, and what is your status now? You finished chemo correctly earlier this year?
Yep, I did chemo and surgery and radiation.
Okay.
I finished all active treatment March 29th, and so I'm starting my third month of finding my normal.
All right, sounds good. We like that. So Kristen Heidema with the American Cancer Society, what made you interested in working with the ACS?
Yes, well, I have a very personal story with cancer. I lost my best friend to cancer, and so this is my way of fighting back. Being able to educate people about cancer screening, what the American Cancer Society can provide and help educate people, but then also fundraising too, so that we can find that cure.
One of the biggest fundraisers, the signature fundraiser for the American Cancer Society, is coming up pretty soon, the Relay for Life. So do you want to make a plug for that real quick?
Absolutely. We'll be June 13th, so in 2 weeks, at Stevens High School Gymnasium. We will start at 6 p.m. We invite all survivors, their caregivers, family, friends. Everybody is welcome to come out to celebrate, remember, and fight back.
All right, sounds good. Okay, we are going to take a quick break now. When we come back, we'll talk about cancer prevention and the many advances in cancer treatment over the years. Stay with us. Welcome back to Focus. I'm Julie Oberlander, and this month we're talking about cancer as well as cancer prevention and cancer treatments. I'm going to start with you again, Dr. Peterite. I'm sure there's too many to discuss in a relatively short period of time, but if you can, talk about some of the biggest advances that we've made in treating cancer in recent years.
Sure, that's a challenging question, but when people ask, well, when are you going to find the cure for cancer? My first response is, well, actually, we have a cure for a lot of cancers, and the cure rate keeps going up every year. The 5-year survivorship keeps going up each year by 1 to 1.5%. So, cancer, if caught early, can be very curable for many cancer types. There are some cancers that aren't that curable. most of the major advances come in incremental benefits, and it comes through research. And if we have time to talk about funding and lack of funding, and American Cancer Society has actually obviously helped with that endeavor, but a lot of it comes through clinical trials. And so how do we take how do we take from the laboratory a compound that works in the cells to mice to the human model and bring that out? And so when Dr. Slayman was here a couple of weeks ago from California, who invented Herceptin, that's one of the stories of how you get from bench to bedside. And so there's a lot of drug development going on that has to do a lot with research, so that's one part of it. Patients often ask, well, gee, what can I do? Well, there's not one thing somebody can do, but I think it's about balance. Exercise, limit fat intake, limit alcohol. Obviously, tobacco is bad. One message that probably isn't out there is the HPV vaccine. That I think only a third of the kids are getting can actually prevent some head and neck cancers as well as some GYN cancers. And so that potentially is a preventable cancer with a vaccine. Mm-hmm. It's just more than getting a vaccine, it's education as well. But there is a pretty rapidly increasing rate of head and neck cancer that's related to this human papillomavirus, which is preventable if someone has the vaccine, and there are other behavioral issues as well. But Jenny's example, she's done everything right, but she's still got cancer. So that's where one has to pay attention to their own body and see if there's any changes.
Well, and sometimes genetics obviously plays a role. If it's running through somebody's family, I'm
Right.
sure somebody thinks like, well, maybe it's just a matter of time. So if it is something that's in a gene or something like that, I don't want to sound like have a defeatist attitude,
Sure.
but what do you do about that?
Yeah.
Can you do anything about
Well,
that?
and technically all cancers happen at a genetic level. It's an aberration of the DNA. Okay. There are some cancers that you can have a mutation from birth, but most of them are somatic mutations. They happen later in life. Okay. But I think your point is well taken in that if someone is predisposed to cancer, they need to pay attention to their bodies. They need to go see their physicians. There are some prophylactic surgeries that can be done at times. If someone has the BRCA1 and 2 mutation for breast cancer, whether it's really early screening or prophylactic mastectomies or removal of the ovaries. But I think education at multiple levels is really the key.
Okay. Jenny, how was your cancer treated? You mentioned it a little bit. What kind of treatment did you go through?
Right after diagnosis, I started right away with chemotherapy, which seems to be kind of a newer way of doing things, to do the chemo before surgery for breast cancer. So I had 20 weeks of chemo that I started September 13th.
And is that every day, once a week?
I did once a week for 12 weeks, and then every other week for the last 8 weeks.
Okay.
So 20 weeks total of that with the 3 different drugs. And then, so I finished that January 17th and then had my surgery. I had a double mastectomy on February 3rd. Okay. And then I started radiation late February and did 5 weeks of radiation. So.
And how did you handle the treatment? Because I remember years ago, hearing people say, geez, sometimes the treatment is worse than the cancer. People would get so sick from chemotherapy or things like that. How did you manage it? Yeah,
it was a tough thing, especially to explain to my kids, I wasn't sick when they told me I had cancer, and the chemo, it didn't affect me nearly as bad as it does some people. I'm young and healthy, and I was training for a 200-mile relay when I found out, and I did get to run it before I started my chemo. So I was healthy. I handled it. I didn't have very many side effects at all. The main thing was fatigue over time, but the kids noticed that you're not doing your normal things. My brain just didn't work how I wanted it to, and, my hair fell out, of course, it was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. When the doctors first told me, oh, your hair's going to fall out, and they'd look at me like, I'm so sorry. I was like, whatever, whatever you need to do. And then when it was falling out, I'm like, this really sucks.
Yeah.
So I think I handled it better than a lot of people. I know that now that I hear more cancer stories about other women going through it, and I didn't have nearly the side effects that a lot of people have. So.
I know you had a big support system. How important is that for somebody dealing with cancer?
Yeah, I mean, it was huge. I just, even from the very beginning, you know, when I told my book club that, you know, that what was diagnosed, and they were at my house like within 4 hours with cake and vodka, and you know, when I told him going through chemo, I'm like, you know, it's such a long time. You know, when they tell you you're going to have 16 treatments over 20 weeks, and it just seems like this insurmountable hill. I'm like, we're going to need to plan a big celebration for when I'm done. I said, I think we should have a flash mob in the parking lot, and they were all kind of like, is she kidding? Does she really want us to dance outside of the cancer center? I'm like, and they're like, okay, well, if she can do chemo for 20 weeks, we can dance for 3 minutes.
And they did.
and they did.
Kristen,
Yeah.
you meet cancer patients, survivors, caregivers all the time. While it must be incredibly hard for somebody to hear you have cancer, do you find people these days have more hope because treatments have come so far?
Absolutely, and that's one thing about the American Cancer Society Relay for Life, is that this is an opportunity for all those survivors to come together and see each other. And you know, we have survivors who are survivors for 20-some years, and they meet someone who has just been newly diagnosed. And so, you know, that's one thing that we really encourage people to come to Relay for Life, so that they can find someone that has gone through it before, so that they can have a support system.
All right, sounds good. Okay, we're going to take another quick break. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. You're watching Focus on Black Hills Fox. We're talking about cancer this month, and we've talked a little bit about it already, but of course we can always talk a little more about cancer prevention and maybe some early screening. So Dr. Peterite, what are some known, you talked about it a little bit, some known causes of cancer that really people should absolutely be avoiding, and also what screenings do you really encourage people to make sure they have as time goes on? So
to go through that kind of quickly, for cervical cancer, it's typically onset of sexual activity or 18, for a pap smear to detect cervical cancer. It's once every 3 years the pap smear is normal. For breast cancer screening, it's typically age of 40 unless there's positive family history of breast cancer. For colorectal cancer, it's usually colonoscopy by the time you're 50. So I turned 50 and got to have that lovely test. Then they can do fecal occult blood tests. So again, colon cancer screening once you're 50. Big controversy right now is prostate cancer. And there's a big report that came out that said from the U.S. Preventative Task Force that you don't need to screen men for prostate cancer, which I completely disagree with. And it really comes down to appropriate screening criteria. I mean, to tell a guy in his 50s he shouldn't get a PSA, which is a prostate-specific antigen, I think is crazy. Now, if someone's in their 70s or 80s, you probably don't need to test for prostate cancer. But if their parents live to be in their 90s, that's another issue. But this is a cancer that is the second leading cause of death for guys. I see a lot of men with metastatic prostate cancer. It's a cancer that can be caught early with PSAs and rectal exams. So I think that message, unfortunately, is out there in the public domain, and people really need to be educated about my own personal opinion is anyone that's healthy in their 50s and 60s and maybe 70s should be getting a PSA once a year. The other new thing is screening for lung cancer for patients between 50 and 75 that have a 30-pack year smoking history. Doing a chest CT for a baseline, I don't know if it's once every 2 or 3 years, has shown to reduce cancer death rates, because that's a cancer that we don't do very well in curing, because most patients present with locally advanced lung cancer. Now, will insurance companies cover that right now? I'm not sure. But those are probably the big 5 screen detectable cancers at this point. And early prevention, you said, very important for a lot of cancers, correct? Yeah, if you have symptoms, you need to come in, if you're having anything that's unusual. All right. I read an article recently about a study that focused, and I think it was focusing on breast cancer, and I'm sorry, I don't know if you might have seen it or not, but they were talking about some of the environmental factors that might increase a person's risk, and it was things like sitting a lot in an idling car, and chemicals used in some dry cleaning products, and even stain-resistant furniture and those kinds of things. And I'm thinking to myself, what mom out there isn't going to get a couch that has stain-resistant chemicals? You know what I mean? Sure. I felt very much like how on earth do women today or anybody today kind of avoid these things? So what are your thoughts on some of those environmental things? Can we really do anything about that? I mean, you're probably asking the wrong person, but my sense is I do pay attention to some of that literature. one day it's, you shouldn't have any alcohol. The next day it's a little bit of alcohol. It's low fat, it's high fat. I mean, I think it's a balance. I mean, can you get it from having bottled water in your car? I mean, I always am a little bit suspect on the next study that comes out that says that you shouldn't do this, that, and the other. I really think it comes down to living a balanced lifestyle and getting screening.
Very good advice. Jenny, now that you've successfully fought cancer once, are there things that you need to keep doing to prevent it from coming back?
I think it's just like Dr. Peter Wright said, you just kind of have to I can't live my life avoiding everything that everyone says might cause cancer. I just try to have a balance in everything I do. I probably eat less processed foods, eat more, whole foods and healthy foods, and but I exercised before. I didn't ever smoke, and I wasn't in the high-risk category, so.
How has it changed your kids' lives?
Oh, I think it's just kind of made all of us, step back and slow down and appreciate what you have and the time that you have and the little things in life that can kind of get away from you when there's 4 kids running around and lots of activities and sports. And not that we didn't appreciate and enjoy all of that before, but I think it just kind of reminded everyone. And the other thing that it really did for me is that I've always kind of been a quiet person. I don't really talk about my feelings or myself very much, and I just kind of made a decision early on that I was just going to tell everyone on Facebook and everywhere everything about every step of my journey. And if I could help educate anyone along the way, I'll have lunch with a stranger and become their friend and, just help anyone that I can with their journey, and maybe helps. If I got one person to a mammogram that didn't want to go before, then it was worth it. But just the open communication and sharing and enjoying life.
Very true. Kristen will talk a little bit more about the Relay for Life coming up. You guys raise tens of thousands of dollars, and their Relay for Lives all across the country raise a lot of money. Where does that money go? How does it really help cancer patients and maybe caregivers too? Because there's a lot of support services that go along with that.
Absolutely, and that's where our mission comes involved with this is, a majority of it does go towards research. But then there's small things like Road to Recovery programs where volunteers can sign up to give cancer patients rides to and from treatment, which is huge because some people don't have family in the area. And when you're going through treatment, you might not be able to drive. There's also like the Look Good, Feel Better programs, which offer women classes about makeup, finding those wigs to stay positive and to keep that somewhat normal to what they were doing before cancer treatments. There's also different programs like the support groups and stuff like that. We also have Hope Centers, which provides lodging for families to stay while they're going through cancer treatment. So there's many, many, many different opportunities where the money is going to and what we're doing, but the majority of it does go towards research.
To you, what's the best part of the Relay for Life?
My favorite part of Relay for Life is the luminaria ceremony, and that's obviously a very emotional part, but it's a time that we get to honor those that have passed from cancer. Like I said, it is emotional, but it reminds me that what we're doing here is we're continuing to fight so that we can have more survivors at Relay for Life.
Absolutely. Kristen mentioned some programs that go a little farther to help cancer patients. Dr. Peter, I know one of the programs you're very involved with, the Walking Forward program, which is a pretty big deal here in Western South Dakota, but a lot of people may not know much about it. Do you want to talk about that just briefly?
Sure. So it's part of a grant that we received from the National Cancer Institute 12 years ago, and the basic premise of the project is to help lower the cancer death rates for American Indians that live in western South Dakota, because the death rates are some of the highest from cancers in the nation. So a big part of it has been patient navigation, and as a spin-off, so part of our program has been to help patients get to their treatment, early detection, what are the barriers to seeking care, innovative clinical trials, but the patient navigation has been a big part of our program, where we have Lakota or Native navigators that live in the community. They help with educating, the community about the importance of screening and lifestyle choices. But a big part of what we've done is patient navigation, and this relates to breast cancer, where we've had some success in navigating patients with the complexity of their cancer treatment, that the hospital decided to hire their own dedicated breast navigator for everybody. So there's been a lot of positive spin-offs for the entire population.
Where do you see, are you seeing some success, or how can you even measure success with that?
Yeah, try to answer that quickly. We have some data, a paper that's going to come out pretty soon, that when we compare the pre-walking forward era versus the walking forward era, it's a 20-year statistical analysis. It looks like Native Americans are now presenting with earlier stages of cancer. Now, I can't say that's solely because of our program. Maybe we had a small part in that, but that would be one small measure of success. There's others, but I know we're running out of time.
That's okay. That's okay. We're doing okay. Jenny, what would you tell someone who's just been diagnosed with cancer, maybe somebody watching at home who will be diagnosed after they see the show? What advice would you have for them to help get them through that journey?
I would just say, you just have to stay positive and gather your support system and resources around you, and stay positive, and and also educate yourself on what's going on with your treatment, because we have a great, the Cancer Care Center is great, and all of my doctors were great at presenting everything, but I also felt like I was part of my treatment, and I got to have a say in what was happening, and I think that helps you feel more in control and more like you have a stake in how you're feeling. And especially with chemotherapy, a lot of the side effects that I had were from other meds that they gave me that weren't the chemo drugs themselves. And so when I would go back and say, those steroids kept me up for 2 days, let's not do that, and they would listen to me, and that made me feel like I was in control of how I was feeling and could have a say in how things went. So, but I think the main thing is to stay positive, and to, it looks like a long road when they tell you that it's going to be 8 months, but now that I look back, sometimes I'm like, did I do all of that? Was that me? But, now that it's behind me, it just seems like it's a bump in the road, and just keep moving forward. So it's doable. It's totally doable, and just baby steps at a time, and keep your head up.
Kristen, what would you tell people, having met so many people either on the journey or helping somebody on the journey? What would you tell people about staying positive?
Yeah, well, and another thing I'd like to say is that you're not alone. There are resources out there like the American Cancer Society, and we want to help people. I think sometimes people don't know where to start. And so that's why we really encourage people and try and tell them about the American Cancer Society, that we have resources to help them.
Absolutely. And people can still get in on the Pennington County Relay for Life?
Absolutely. Yep.
All right. How can they do that?
They can just go to relayforlife.org. They can sign up, or they can show up the night of.
Sounds good. That's June 13th at the Stevens High School Gymnasium. It was moved this year because construction came up at Sioux Park, where it usually is. But I have told people it certainly is about the cause, not the location, right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Dr. Daniel Peterite from the Cancer Care Institute at Rapid City Regional Hospital. Jenny Liebernight, our cancer survivor and a great dancer. I saw the video on YouTube. You can probably Google her name or search her name on YouTube and see an awesome video with a lot of people who came out to support her on her last day of chemo, and she is now can call herself a survivor. And Kristen Heidema from the American Cancer Society. We thank you so much for joining us tonight. And for anybody who is dealing with cancer, you have resources here in Rapid City. Be sure you use them. That's going to do it for me for now. We'll see you again next month on Focus.